I bet that you grew up pretty much thinking that plants were plants, stones were stones, and that things of value like money had to be earned. We're talking about Taurus. Today, we're continuing our Taurus talks, and I'm Natha Perkins of Electra Astrology. I'm in the middle of several Taurus talks. If you have missed the ones previous to this, tune in, going through Taurus as a valuable archetype that you have. You don't have to be a Taurus to be working with the Taurus archetype all the time. Something that is always in the background for each of us when it comes to money, resources, our physical body, and how to create more abundance. You're using that all the time, aren't you? Even if you're not a Taurus. So we're using these archetypes to self-explore and examine. This is Astrology for Awakening, and these are episodes that I released in 2024 in season 5 of my podcast, Star Narratives. I'm editing them and re-releasing them, so they are a cohesive body of work. You can listen on both the podcast and on YouTube. I take you through all of these archetypes in great detail with an invitation to self-explore, for you to listen to what I'm talking about and make your own personal connections so that you know your inner world better. You know what you're doing here and why you're here, what you need to understand in order to function, to create more well-being for yourself, which spreads out and creates more well-being for the people around you. We're doing this healing work backward and forward and in the present. So as we're looking at Taurus and using the analogy of the garden, in order to create abundance, we have to treat it like a garden where there's a natural cycle of planning, planting, waiting, tending, and then harvesting. So it comes to money, to love, to self-worth. We must follow that cycle. And if we were taught that money is something to be earned, then we might miss out on a part of the cycle that's really necessary. We might hit the waiting part of the cycle and get really frustrated and feel like I'm never going to have any money. I'm never going to have what I need. Or we might forget the nurturing part of the cycle where we're just tending to the seeds that we've planted. And we actually have more power than we think when it comes to growing this proverbial garden, because the way that we've been conditioned to look at the world is one where it's very black and white. If you want to make money, you have to go to school, and then you have to get a good job, and then you have to work at that job for a long time. And then you have to be good with money so you're not overspending and you're not getting into debt. Or we can look at it like if you want fruits and vegetables, you can just go to the store and buy them. But what I really want to think about today is, what if we had a little bit more magic at our fingertips? We were going to assume a little bit more responsibility and cast what we were taught to the side and say, like, what if I wanted to grow something really fruitful and beautiful? How would I do that? Could I make connections with the land? Could I sit next to the trees in my garden and ask for guidance? Could I have conversations with the fungus in the soil? Could I bless the water that I am pouring into my garden to water these plants? And the answer, of course, is yes, we can do all of that. And in order to do it, it's so easy. We just have to remember, we have to replace old conditioning that says, yeah, right. You have to go to the store, get some Roundup to kill the weeds, and you have to pour some fertilizer to grow the stuff. And in the meantime, whatever you aren't growing, you can just go to the store and buy, but you need money to buy it. But even when you sense into that route, doesn't it feel so empty and so not natural and so not magical? So we're looking at the magic of Taurus, at the magic of being able to create what we want, especially when we're doing it in ways that are a little different, in ways that are much more connected with the earth. When we are connected with our abundance, with our money, with our physical body, and we understand that there's a certain cycle, a timing of a cycle that goes along with these things, we begin to understand that we have more power than we think. Taurus is all about power. It's a very powerful sign. It is the power that says, I want it, and I shall go out and get it. And here's how I will get it. I will show up consistently. I will put in the work that's needed in order to create the abundance, and then I will use the abundance wisely. So as I'm talking about Taurus moving forward and the connection to the body, I want to remind you that you do have the ability to tune into the subtle energetic layers of stones, of fungi, of the sunshine, of the plants, the leaves, the air. You can tune into those things. Ask them what they need from you in order to support your garden. Ask them if there's anything that you can do to help them. Are there any offerings that they would like? Do they have any wisdom for you? And once you get a handle on that, because you will get answers, it will be fun. You can make a game of it. You will get answers. You can turn those same questions onto your physical body. What does my body need from me? Last week, I talked about Taurus as it relates to the body. So you can listen to that episode. But there is magic to be worked on the physical body as well. So here's a challenge for you. As you are seeking to understand your own relationship to money and your own relationship to cycles, and you're thinking of the analogy of the garden, I know that things take time. I know that my job is to continue to show up and do the next thing that needs to be done. But I'm learning about my own personal power, and I'm understanding, as we are through all of this Pisces energy, through the Pisces archetype, I'm understanding that it's not just on my shoulders, that there is a vast world of magic, spiritual connection that is available to me if I ask. So the challenge for you, the homework, if you want to take it on, is to practice asking for help, asking for guidance when you are bumping up against some deficiency, whether you're feeling tired and depleted in your physical body, or you need more money, you're feeling broke, you're not feeling confident, like everything you do isn't working and you're feeling down on yourself. Practice asking for help. You can ask your garden. You can sit with your back to a tree. You can ask a spirit animal. You can tune into planetary energy. You can ask Venus. This is a Venus-ruled sign. You can ask whatever higher power you pray to. You can ask for a little bit of help in understanding what I need to do to move to the next part of this cycle. Remember that you are going to need to plant, then wait, then tend, and then harvest. Wherever you are in that cycle, you can practice asking the subtle energies for guidance and help. So before we move into the talk, if you like my style and you would like to book a private reading, or you would like to become a student or get your hands on my free ebook, you can do that at electraastrology.com. And of course, like and subscribe wherever you are watching or listening so you can find this information again. All right, let's jump in. We're talking about Taurus and how to manifest and how to really stay on top of the things that you want and how to identify when things are going on in your life and in your proverbial gardens that you don't like. We're still in the throes of Taurus. And if you have missed any of the last 4 weeks on Taurus, you might want to go back and listen to them because this is such an important archetype for all of us to explore. This Taurus second house business is all about the delights, the pleasures, the treasures, the bounties, the riches, everything that we always say we want more of. And we oftentimes don't stop to even really understand how we relate to those things. We want more, but we feel like we don't have enough, feel like we don't know how to get more, or maybe we base our whole identity and our whole driving force on acquiring more. And so if you go back into these episodes where we really address all of these different ways that you might consciously or unconsciously relate to abundance, it's a good archetype to study in yourself so that you can manifest more. And speaking of manifesting more, this week, we're going to talk about Taurus connected to the analogy of the garden. So I love talking about Taurus as a garden because it makes it really clear exactly what we're looking at. And it's an easy concept for all of us to understand because we all at one point or another have eaten vegetables and fruit. We have enjoyed beautiful flowers. We have planted seeds. We have watered our houseplants. We're all in one way or another connected to growth and the pleasure of growing something and then being able to enjoy it. So I want to break down the zodiac into our 12 parts. So, as you have heard me say, I look at the zodiac as an organizing system for our human experience and what we're doing here on this planet. And we all share these in common. Every single one of us has every single aspect of these things in our life that we're dealing with on a daily basis. So, I'm going to break these areas down into all of your gardens. So, let's just hypothesize that we all have 12 gardens in the realm of our kingdom. We are in charge of all 12 gardens, and every garden grows something different. And we're going to look at how each of these gardens is growing. So, to start off with, we'll start off with that first house, which is our Aries Mars garden. And this is the garden of how we are perceived, how we show up in the world, our boundaries, our passion, our anger. The second house, the house of Venus and Taurus, is the garden of our money, garden of our self-worth, garden of where we are manifesting. The third house, the house of Gemini and Mercury, this is the garden of our mind, the garden of our thoughts, garden of the way that we connect with others. The fourth house, the house of Cancer and the moon, garden of our deeply held emotions. Also the garden of our family, our home, our lineage, family of creation, family of origin, and the garden of our mother. The fifth house, the house of Leo and the sun, this is the garden of self, the garden of who we are, our creativity, our joy, our laughter, our children, our father. The sixth house, the house of Virgo and Mercury, this is the garden of our health, of our habits, our routines, the garden of where we give of ourselves in order to feel like we are giving back. Seventh house, which is the house of Libra and Venus. This is the garden of our relationships, garden of our partnerships. The eighth house, the house of Scorpio and Pluto, this is the garden of our psyche, of our psychology, of the things that have happened to us in our life that have formed who we are now, garden of our transformation. The ninth house, the house of Jupiter and Sagittarius, this is the garden of our education, of our experiences, of our adventures, of our beliefs. This can be the garden of our religions if you are a religious person. The 10th house, the house of Saturn and Capricorn, this is the garden of your life's great work, garden of your career, the garden of you making a name for yourself in the world, having a body of work, developing a reputation, acting in integrity. The 11th house being the house of Uranus and Aquarius, this is the garden of your community, how you're interacting with the people around you and how you are either fitting in or not fitting in. And the 12th house, finally, the house of Pisces and Neptune, is the house of your spirituality, the house of your relationship to your higher power, to your trusting in divine timing, in the magical dynamic flow of the universe. In all of these 12 gardens, you want to take a moment and kind of tune in. How is that garden doing? So just take a deep breath and get settled in your nervous system. So I want you to think about a garden in your life, one of the areas that I just mentioned, that is struggling. What area of your life is feeling like you can't grow anything right now? So let's go through, and again, I'm going to kind of use some of these astrological archetypes to explain how we grow a garden. First of all, in order to have a garden, we need to have clarity about what kind of garden it is. And this is where we bring in that Mars energy, where we need to understand what the boundaries are. How is this garden going to work? Where are we going to plant it? What are we going to put in our garden? And what are we going to leave out of our garden? Then we move into the Taurus part of the garden, which is where we have to have the foundation. We have to have the soil. We have to make sure that the soil is healthy. that there are enough of the microbiome in the soil to feed the seeds, that the soil is strong enough and conditioned enough for the roots to be able to take hold. And then we move into that Mercury Gemini archetype. We know that in order to plant a successful garden, the conditions of the air have to be right. We're not going to try to plant a garden in the middle of the winter in Colorado because fruits and vegetables won't grow. So we want to make sure that the kind of garden that we're planting is going to be supported by the way that our plant is communicating with the rest of the environment. So think about this garden in your own life that is not thriving right now. Do you have a garden that has appropriate boundaries? Do you understand what it is that you're trying to do, that you're trying to grow? And is the foundation one that is nourishing? Is there enough within the foundation of this particular garden to provide a growing environment? And then what is the relationship to your garden, to the rest of your environment around it? Is this area of your life set up to grow the kind of garden that you want? And so we start looking at an environment of life. Do you have enough time? Do you have the mental bandwidth? Do you have the finances? Right? So we start to break down what isn't working in this particular garden. And then if we move on and we look at that fourth house moon, we know that that's emotions. That's the house of water. And we need emotional connection to whatever it is that we're trying to grow. We need emotional bandwidth. We need to be able to understand that even when the going gets tough, if we have an emotional connection to this garden that we're growing, that we can withstand it and that we can use our emotions, we can use the water to fortify the growth, but we don't want to overwater and we certainly don't want to underwater. We move into the fifth house, that's the house of the sun, and we need the sun. We need an appropriate amount of sun. We don't want to burn, we don't want to dry out the soil. And the sun represents creativity. It represents joy. The sixth house, that house of Virgo, of Mercury, is where we have our habits and our routines and our rituals. And we have to continue to show up over and over in order to maintain the health of the garden. So in this garden that you have in your life right now that is not functioning as well as you would like, are you emotionally connected to what you're trying to grow? Do you allow your emotions to come in and kind of sweep you away? Do you allow a bad experience to flood your garden almost to the point that you can't get it dried out enough to grow the seeds and things begin to rot and get moldy? Are you able to be creative in the way that this garden runs? Is there enough time, energy, attention to be able to really grow this garden? And do you have good habits and routines, right? Are you showing up every single day to water and to weed? So when we start to look at this concept of abundance and of manifestation, right, we want to have the healthiest garden possible in any given area of our life. But if we are missing some of these elements, then we start to have dried out gardens where things are wilting, or we begin to have overgrown gardens where there's a lot of fertility, where things are growing well, but eventually they're going to come to a standstill because you're not able to thin things out. You're not able to discern what's really important to focus your time on. So these are some things to think about when you're looking at this idea of how am I supposed to manifest? How am I supposed to really get in and grow the things that I want to grow? Now, to continue on with the rest of the zodiac wheel, as we apply it to this garden, in the seventh house of Venus, we need partnership. Sometimes we're going to have to call in help. If there's something in your garden that's not going very well, have you considered asking another person to come in and assist, or asking another person to give their insight into what's happening? When we move into the eighth house of Pluto Scorpio, this is where we can get caught up in old traumatic things that have happened, these sneaky little beliefs that come in that say, well, you kind of suck at growing a garden. Like, of course, everybody else's garden is going to be amazing and yours isn't because you don't know what you're doing. And you've tried this before and you've screwed it up before. In the eighth house, we're looking at those traumatic beliefs that come in that kind of hold us back, that suck away our power. We can also look in this eighth house Scorpio to the places where our addictions get the best of us. Maybe you haven't been watering your garden because you've had too much wine the last few nights. Maybe you are feeling resentful because somebody else's garden looks better. And therefore, you just throw your hands up in the air and you say, I'm not going to do this garden anymore because I'm not going to be good at it. And they're always going to be better. So we have to really watch those aspects too. And then the ninth house of Jupiter and Scorpio is education. There are places where, when we're trying to manifest, you might need to get more education. You might need to get out and away from your own garden and look at other people's gardens to get a sense of what to do next. One of my favorite things to do, especially in the summer in Boulder, is to walk through the community gardens because it is so amazing to see 100 gardens all laid out in these beautiful boxes and see the way that different people do their gardens. Some people prefer these lush forest-like overgrown gardens. Some people are very manicured and very specific with what they're growing. Some people are only growing fruits. Some people are only growing flowers. And there's a lot of benefit of getting to see how other people are doing it so that you can maybe change it up or pick up some new skills along the way. Oh, I'm going to put a covering there so that the sun doesn't get so bright that it burns my peppers, even though that my tomatoes need a lot of sun. So you see what I'm saying? When you're looking at your garden, you have to take into account all of these different factors. And then, of course, we come to that 10th house, which is the Saturn Capricorn house. And we have to remember that with this energy, we are trying to learn. We are becoming masters. We don't start as an immediate master. We are never an instant expert. It does take trial and error. We are going to have experiences where we let our emotions get the best of us and we overwater the garden. We are going to have moments of being jealous of other people's gardens and wanting to throw our hands up. We are going to have places where we have not created a foundation that is nutritious and nurturing for our garden, but we learn. And every time that we learn something new, we then take what we've learned and we apply it to what is here, which means that over time, if we continue to really work our garden, we develop these gorgeous green thumbs. The 11th house, Uranus and Aquarius, is where we might need to bring in some community. We might need to join a group, maybe a group of other people who know about what we're trying to grow. We might find ideas that will help us improve our garden. We might come into ideas that are really different than what we have done before. And we may decide to buck the norm and do our garden here a little bit differently. And then finally, the 12th house, Neptune Pisces, is a house where we have to partner with the divine, right? Like any garden, there are some seasons where it's going to be too windy to grow. It's going to be too wet to grow or not enough sun to grow. And we have to trust that we're being taken care of, right? That we don't want to get so fearful and we don't want to get into our own undoing by wringing our hands and hypothesizing that we're never going to make this thing work. We want to be able to tap into our higher power and say, help me, show me what I need to know. Help me sustain this garden. What am I not seeing? Help me to see a different way. And so when we can utilize all of these in these areas of our life where we don't feel abundant, where we don't feel like we know what's going on and we don't have enough and we're in lack and we're feeling stubborn and we're feeling like we have to hoard what we have, these are the indications that we need to course correct our garden. So give that some thought this week. And so let's just do a brief visualization to carry you out into this teaching for the rest of the week as you're contemplating this. And in the Northern Hemisphere, it's the perfect time to be contemplating this because it is the beginning of that growing season. where we are going to have the entire summer to watch how our gardens, how our literal gardens are growing, but hopefully also our metaphorical gardens. So just close your eyes, take some deep breaths, feel into your body. Last week, I talked about Taurus as it relates to the physical body and how going into your body and being with your body brings you so much information about your relationship to abundance. So dip into that body right now. Get a sense of what it feels like inside. And I want you to imagine that you are walking into a secret garden. You've just stumbled upon a big, beautiful door and you're opening it and you step into an amazing, magical garden. It is so beautiful. There are fruits dripping from the trees. There are vines crawling up the wall covered in flowers. There are birds singing. There's a carpet of beautiful grass under your feet. Raised garden beds full, laden with vegetables. And look around this garden and make it your own. Maybe there's a fountain in the middle. Maybe there's a brook running through the corner. And imagine that you're sitting down and taking it all in. And you're using your senses. You're listening to the sounds. You're smelling the smells, that rich smell of earth and those fragrant flowers, the sweet smell of fruit wafting through the air. You're using your eyes to take it all in, noticing the different shades of green, the contrast of the wood against the green, the shades of the fruits and the flowers. You're feeling the temperature of the air against your skin. You're noticing what it feels like to be tickled by the grass on your feet. Imagine you lean over and you pull an apple from a tree and you take a bite. You're tasting it, the sweetness, the tartness, the crunch. And you're using all of these Taurus senses, which we've talked about over these seasons. You're embodied. You feel the ground beneath your feet. You're using all of your senses, and you are sitting in a land of total abundance. And you are understanding the gifts that this moment brings you, because this is what we're working with, especially right now, as we're moving through all of this Taurus energy. We are remembering our own power when it comes to manifestation. We are understanding that although growing an amazing garden can take time and patience, which it always does, we never drop a seed into the soil and have a beautiful piece of fruit the next day. It takes time. It takes effort. It takes going through all of the things that I just talked about. It's a whole cycle of growth in order to get what we need. But ultimately, at the end, we do get what we need. And that's an important thing to really grasp when we're working with the archetype of Taurus, is that we have what we need. We will get what we need. We will be able to hold on to what we need, but we have to put in the work. We have to be willing to sense into what is needed. We need to be able to course correct. We need to be able to understand where our shadows and our shortcomings are getting in the way. And we need a big amount of trust, of faith that we know what we're doing, and that if we make a mistake, it's okay. We can fix it. We can do better next time. Because we are a part of the earth. We are constantly interacting with all of this, and we're feeling it in our own systems. So what is it that is arriving into your consciousness? What is the new information? What are the doors that are opening? What is flaring for you in your life? And if you're noticing that you're having literal flare-ups of health issues or of circumstances, relationship flare-ups or financial flare-ups, what have you, rather than slip straight into fear and using your human mind to try to solve, this is about zooming out and looking at the bigger picture of what is this trying to teach me? What is this trying to show me? If I'm having a health flare up, am I overdoing it? Am I bending over backwards to do things for people that I end up feeling resentful about? Am I eating foods that I know that my body does not relate well to? Am I ignoring some wound that really just needs a little bit of TLC and attention to move into the next part of my healing process? So, again, pay attention this week and really tune into yourself, really get a sense of what it is like for you in this moment in your life. This is a powerful moment, and there is so much information to harvest. You don't want to just drive past the moment and not gather anything of value into your basket to take home with you. This is the kingdom of Taurus, and the sun has been in the kingdom of Taurus for the last month. So, what is it that you learned? What were your major downloads, your major themes that came in? It's a good time to be as self-aware as possible when it comes to these questions. All right, I hope this was helpful.